HOA Karen harassed my visiting parents. They turned out to be city officials. Nora moved into the community on a mild Saturday morning. The sky was clear, and a soft breeze moved the tree leaves along the main boulevard. The homes were tidy and close together, with even lawns and matching mailboxes. A white sign at the entrance said the community was managed by the Homeowners Association. The letters looked polished, and the posts beside the sign had fresh paint. It all looked peaceful from the outside. Nora felt hopeful as she unlocked her front door. She worked hard to buy this small place, and she wanted it to feel like a fresh start. She had told her parents to visit the next day to help her settle in and say a small prayer for the new home. They were excited to see her and to bring a few dishes of homemade food. On Sunday morning, her parents, Fatima and Imran, arrived with gentle smiles and a box of kitchen things that they thought she might need: a kettle, a tiny spice rack, a good pen. They parked in a space marked guest. The painted word looked worn at the edges, like someone had driven over it too many times. Still, it was clear enough. Nora had studied the welcome packet. She had emailed the HOA office the night before and got a reply with a digital guest pass. She printed the pass, tucked it into a clear sleeve, and set it on the dashboard. It felt careful and correct. She wanted to start her life here on the right foot. They carried things inside and laughed over how small the living room looked with boxes stacked in a corner. Fatima put the kettle on the stove and opened the windows to let in some fresh air. Imran walked out to the porch, stretching his back after the drive. He looked around with a quiet, observant gaze. He noticed several potted plants placed near the sidewalk outside the clubhouse across the way. They were pretty, but one planter seemed to sit too close to the little ramp that led from the sidewalk down to the parking lot. He did not say anything yet. He liked to look first and talk later. A woman in a neat blazer and a bright scarf walked down the sidewalk with quick steps. She had a clipboard under one arm and a phone in her hand. She paused, focused on the guest parking row, then on Nora's car, then on the printed pass on the dashboard. Nora stepped out to say hello and smiled. "Good morning," Nora said. "I'm Nora, I just moved in." The woman gave a short nod. "I know. You're in Unit 18B, she said. Her tone was crisp. "I'm Karen from the HOA board. How long will your visitors be here, and who approved that pass?" Nora tried to keep her voice friendly. She explained that her parents would only be there for the day and maybe early evening to help her settle in. She pointed to the printed pass and said she had the email if needed. She offered to show it on her phone. Karen did not look at the phone. She lifted her own phone and took several pictures of the windshield and then the license plate. "There is a 2-hour limit for guest parking," Karen said. "After that, we consider it overnight or storing a vehicle. We have towing partners for that." Nora felt a small, tight worry in her stomach. In the welcome packet, she had read that guests could stay up to 72 hours with a pass. She remembered reading it twice to be sure. "I think the handbook says 72 hours with a pass," Nora said, trying to keep her words polite. "I can show the page." Karen's jaw set a little. "We run compliance here," she answered. "There are rules, and then there are updated practices. You'll get used to it. For now, I'm telling you the limit is 2 hours. She clicked a few more pictures of the parking area and the curb. She spoke into her phone as if making notes. Imran joined them on the walkway. He kept his posture relaxed. "Good morning," he said. "We don't want to cause any trouble. We placed the pass as instructed." He looked over at the painted lines of the guest spaces. They were faded in spots, especially near the end closest to the ramp. The edge of the ramp had a small planter sitting on the flat part where a wheelchair wheel might need space to turn. He glanced at it with quiet concern. Fatima stood a step behind, hands folded. "If there's any confusion, we can move the car," she offered gently. "We just want to help our daughter today." Karen seemed to soften for a breath, then she squared her shoulders again. "Just be aware," she said. "We can issue fines for non-compliance. If I see this car after 2 hours, I may have to act. People try to push limits when they first arrive. We set standards for a reason." She turned and walked away briskly, typing on her phone as she went. Nora's smile faded as she watched Karen go. She had not meant to start her new life with a problem. She held the guest pass email open on her screen and scrolled to the line about 72 hours, reading it again to be sure she had not misunderstood. It was there, in plain language. She took a screenshot, then sent it to her own email so she could find it quickly later. "Don't worry," Fatima said softly. "We will be calm, and we will keep good records." She squeezed Nora's hand. "It's your home. We will welcome it with peace." Inside, they made tea. Nora tried to settle her nerves by unpacking the kitchen. She lined up plates and cups in the cabinet. Fatima labeled a small box for spices and tucked it near the stove. Imran checked the smoke detector and the door locks. They worked like a team, each with small tasks, letting the simple actions calm the air after the tense moment outside. When they finished the tea, Imran asked to step back out for a walk around the block with Nora. He liked to learn the shape of a new place. They strolled slowly along the sidewalk. Imran pointed out small things and asked simple questions. "See how the paint is broken here," he said at the edge of the guest lot, "and how the word guest is worn? A visitor might park in the wrong spot if they cannot read the sign well." He kept his voice mild, not critical. He only noted it. They reached the ramp near the clubhouse. A pair of large planters sat close together at the top. One planter leaned a little over the turning space. The ramp itself had a slight lip where the concrete met the asphalt. It could catch a will if someone rolled down without seeing it. There was also a red curb painted along the fire lane, but some of the red looked chipped away. In 2 places, the red stopped and turned to plain concrete before starting again. It was possible that someone had painted over it and the paint wore off. Nora listened and nodded. "I didn't notice these details before," she said. "I was just happy to have a place." "That is normal," Imran said. "Homes should be safe and clear for everyone. When rules exist, they should be clear too." They passed a small notice board near the pool. It had a list of posted hours and a flyer about a community picnic from last month. There was nothing about a 2-hour guest limit. Nora took a picture of the board and the pool hours. She felt odd doing it, like she was a tourist in her own neighborhood, but it made her feel prepared. When they returned to the house, Fatima had set out lunch. She had brought a container of rice, a simple chicken dish, and a salad. They ate at the kitchen counter because the table was still in pieces. The food warmed the room and made the house feel like home again. Nora told them about her new job, the neighbor she had waved to the night before, and a tree outside that looked pretty when the sun came through it. For a while, they forgot about rules and passes and pictures. After lunch, they went back outside to bring in 2 more boxes from the car. Karen was at the corner, talking to another person with a lanyard around his neck. She glanced up and watched them for a long moment. Nora nodded to her, a small, polite gesture. Karen did not nod back. She typed something on her phone, and the person with her looked over the parking lot as if checking for something specific. It would have been easy to get defensive. Nora felt the urge rise like a hot wave and then pass. She took a breath and reminded herself that she had done everything right. The pass was in place. The rules were clear. If there was a misunderstanding, it could be cleared up with the handbook and a calm conversation. She whispered this to herself as if it were a one-line prayer, calm and clear. Imran suggested they keep a small folder of their documents for the day. He slid the printed guest pass inside, plus the email printout, plus the screenshot Nora had taken with the exact lines highlighted. He added a note on a small notepad: "Time arrived, time parked, which spot number, and a brief description of the condition of the paint and signs. He did it without drama. It was simply his way. As afternoon drifted toward evening, neighbors appeared on porches, watering plants, and talking in low voices. A man across the street lifted a hand to say hello. Nora waved back. A child rode past on a small bike with training wheels, and a woman walked a little dog that wore a red collar. It looked like an ordinary, friendly place again. The morning's tension felt like a cloud that had moved on. Then a bright reflection bounced off a car window in the guest lot as the setting sun lowered. The reflection drew Nora's eye to a little orange strip on a windshield 2 spaces down from her parents' car. It looked like a sticker. She blinked and told herself not to overthink it. Maybe it was a pass, or something else, not a warning. Her heart beat a little quicker anyway. She put her hand to her chest and laughed softly at herself. I am being silly, she said. Not silly, Fatima said, joining her at the doorway. Just careful. It is good to be careful. They decided to bring in the last box before dinner, and Nora snapped a few more photos, the car with the pass, the guest parking sign, the area near the ramp. She was not trying to prove anything to anyone yet. She wanted a complete story in case someone asked for details later. The photos made a neat timeline on her phone, each one stamped with the time. She saved them to a folder named Move-In Day. As the first porch lights clicked on, Nora felt the weight of the unknown. She did not want trouble with the HOA. She did not want to be the new resident who caused a scene. She also did not want to give up her ground when she knew she had followed the rules. It was a thin line to walk. She looked at her parents and felt grateful. They were calm, steady people. They had spent their lives solving small problems with patience and facts. If there would be a conversation later, she wanted them at her side. Imran stood again on the porch and took one last quiet look at the parking area. His gaze paused on the ramp, the planters, the chipped red paint along the curb. He did not frown or shake his head. He simply stored the picture in his mind. Then he smiled at Nora. Let us eat, he said. Then we will make a list of anything that needs attention, for your own notes. They ate a light dinner and washed the dishes by hand. The house felt more like hers with each box they unpacked. By the time they dried the last plate, it was dark outside and the crickets had started their night song in the bushes. Peace tried to settle back in. Nora turned off the kitchen light and stood at the window, looking at the dim outline of the guest lot. Her parents' car sat under a street lamp, the pass still glinting faintly on the dashboard. For a moment she let herself believe the day would end quietly. But inside that quiet, a small worry waited. It was not loud, only steady, like the sound of a clock in another room. She wished the rules were as clear for everyone else as they were in the packet she had read. She wished the person in the blazer had listened and looked at the email. She wished she could wake up the next morning with no notes on the door and no stickers on the glass. She did not know what would happen next, but she knew how they would meet it if it came, with calm, with facts, and with steady care for the truth. Nora woke early to soft light coming through the blinds and the smell of cardamom tea. For a peaceful moment, she forgot about the conversation with Karen. She smiled at the sound of her parents talking in low voices in the kitchen. Then she stepped onto the porch to greet the morning and saw a bright orange square stuck to her mailbox door. Her stomach dipped. She walked down the path and peeled it off carefully. Violation notice, it read in bold letters, with boxes to mark reasons. The box for guest parking misuse was checked. The fine amount line was blank, but the words fees will accrue daily were written in pen. She glanced toward the guest lot. A second orange sticker glowed on the windshield of her parents' car, right above the printed pass she had placed so carefully. She pressed her lips together to steady herself. The sunlight felt less warm now. She held both notices and went inside. Her parents turned, and their smiles fell as soon as they saw the stickers in her hands. Imran reached for his glasses and read each line slowly. Fatima put the kettle back on the stove without turning it on. She was quiet for a few breaths, then said, "We will not hurry, and we will not worry. We will gather facts first." She took out the folder Imran had started the day before and slid the 2 orange notices inside. Nora opened her phone and took photos of the mailbox, the windshield, and the exact places where the stickers had been. Each photo would hold a time and date. She also filmed a short video of the guest pass sitting plainly on the dashboard so there would be no doubt later. Nora opened the community app to see if there was any update about rules or reminders. A new post sat at the top of the feed, written late in the night by an account with a small shield icon next to it: "Compliance update, new resident parked guests in violation of the 2-hour limit. Please review guest rules." The post included a photo of a car taken from an angle. The license plate was slightly blurred, but the make and color matched her parents' car. Comments below the post were mixed. Some users typed little thumbs up emojis. Others asked where to find the rule, because their handbook said something different. Nora felt heat rise in her face and then leave. She pulled up her email and scrolled to the guest pass message again. The words did not change: guests may use designated spaces for up to 72 hours with an approved pass. It was clear, and she had proof that she had the pass. She took another screenshot, drawing a neat box around the key line. Then she printed the email from her small desktop printer and placed it in the folder with the stickers. Imran suggested a short walk to collect more context. They went outside together. He took pictures of the guest parking sign, the faded lines on the asphalt, and the numbers painted at each space. He walked the edge of the red curb along the fire lane and used his phone camera to capture the chips and gaps. He crouched to look at a sprinkler head that stuck up slightly higher than it should near the walkway. "This could trip someone," he said quietly. "Especially in low light." He took a photo from eye level and another from the side to show the height. Fatima focused on clarity. She photographed the clubhouse notice board that listed pool hours and community updates. She included a shot of the whole board and then close-ups of each paper, so no one could say she skipped something. There was no mention of a 2-hour rule. She also took pictures of the planters near the ramp and measured the turning space with a small tape measure she kept in her bag. "I know this looks fussy," she said, smiling gently at Nora, "but it is easier to help people when the facts are organized." They returned to the house and spread the papers and printed photos on the table like puzzle pieces. Nora opened her laptop and created a simple note file: "Move-in day documentation." She typed a timeline with times and brief descriptions: 8:35 a.m. found orange sticker on mailbox, 8:37 a.m. found sticker on car windshield, 8:45 a.m. screenshot of guest pass email, 9 a.m. photos of signs, lines, ramp, fire lane. She attached the screenshots and added links to the phone photos. At 10 in the morning, Nora decided she should visit the HOA office. She did not want to argue online or reply to the public post. She wanted to speak calmly to a person, show documents, and ask for the notices to be removed. Fatima went with her, carrying the folder. Imran stayed behind to finish tightening cabinet screws and to set a gentle watch over the car. The HOA office sat at the back of the clubhouse, behind a glass door with neat vinyl letters. Inside, a young employee sat at a desk with a pleasant smile. A potted fern leaned toward the light. A small bell chimed when they entered. Nora introduced herself and explained the situation in a few simple sentences. She placed the folder on the desk and slid out the guest pass email, the handbook page, and the stickers. The employee's smile remained kind, but her eyes showed a hint of concern. "I'm sorry you're dealing with this on your first weekend," the employee said. "I'm Emma. I can share your documents with the board. But today, our board member Karen is handling compliance requests. I'm supposed to direct people to her. She's doing rounds this morning." Nora nodded, careful to keep her voice even. "I understand. Would you be able to note in my file that I have a valid pass and that the handbook shows 72 hours? I don't want the car to be towed while we wait. Emma typed into a form and added Nora's documents to a digital folder. I'll note that you came in and that you showed proof, she said. But the compliance board member decides on notices. If you want to avoid more fines while it's reviewed, one option is to pay the first fine and request a hearing. I know that isn't ideal. She looked apologetic. Sometimes people do that to avoid extra attention. Fatima listened closely to the words extra attention. She thanked Emma for being helpful and asked, is there a written update that changed the 72-hour rule to 2 hours? Emma lowered her voice a little. I haven't seen a formal update to the handbook. I only know what I'm told to tell people. I will add your question to the note. They stepped back outside into bright sun. Karen stood near the parking lot entrance, talking to a man wearing a neon vest with the word security printed on it in simple letters. The vest looked like something bought from a store for volunteers. The man held a clipboard and a radio. Karen noticed Nora and walked over, her steps quick and sure. Back so soon? Karen asked in a polite tone that carried a sharp edge. I'm glad you're reading the rules closely. We want good neighbors. Nora took a slow breath. I visited the office to show my guest pass and the handbook page, she said. I also asked that the notices be removed. Karen gestured toward the guest lot. We don't remove notices. We resolve them when the issue is corrected. 2 hours is the limit for guest spaces. If guests need longer, they park outside the gate and walk in. Fatima spoke gently. We haven't seen that written anywhere, she said. The posted materials and the handbook say something else. If an update exists, can we see it? We will follow clear, written guidance. Karen's smile thinned. She nodded at the man in the vest. This is Ron, she said. He's our community safety volunteer. He's here to make sure rules are followed. Ron lifted his hand in a small wave that looked more nervous than official. A man from a nearby building approached and stood a few feet away, as if deciding whether to join the talk. He wore worn-in jeans and carried a canvas tote. He pretended to check his mail but kept glancing at them. After a moment he leaned toward Nora when Karen turned to speak with Ron. I'm Mr. Alvarez, he whispered. I've lived here 8 years. You're not the first to get a surprise notice. Several people got cars towed last month even with passes. Some are fighting fees. Keep your records. You're doing the right thing. Nora thanked him with her eyes more than words. She felt less alone knowing someone else had seen similar issues. Mr. Alvarez stepped back and walked away slowly, as if he had only stopped to admire the landscaping. Karen looked back at Nora. I posted a reminder on the app, she said. We can't have people testing limits. We're a community of standards. She tapped something into her phone. The radio on Ron's vest crackled, though no words came through. Nora kept her voice steady. I saw the post, she said. It shows our car. The plate is blurred, but everyone knows who just moved in. That felt unkind. I would have preferred a private message to clear up the confusion. Karen's eyebrows lifted. Transparency keeps people honest, she said. If a rule isn't written yet, we can still act to protect the neighborhood. Things change. We adapt. Fatima met Karen's gaze without hostility. True, she said. We all adapt. But when rules change, notice matters. Otherwise, good people feel targeted. That hurts trust, and trust is the heart of a community. For several seconds, no one spoke. The birds in the trees filled the space with small calls. A delivery van rolled by, and the driver gave a quick wave to Ron. Then Karen said, you may request a hearing with the board, as if she were reading from a card. Until then, the notices stand. They returned to the house. Nora felt a mix of calm and sorrow. She wanted to make friends here. She wanted to bake cookies for neighbors and learn people's names, not carry a folder around like a shield. She poured tea for her parents and told them what Emma and Karen had said. Imran listened without interruption. When she finished, he said, "You've done everything right. Now we add one more step." Fatima took out her phone and searched for the non-emergency number for the local police. "We are not calling to accuse anyone," she said. "We are calling to ask for a neutral presence if there is a towing attempt or a dispute at the car. It keeps everyone calm and fair." She practiced the words she wanted to say so they would come out clear and gentle. Before calling, she looked at Nora. "Do you agree?" Nora nodded. "Yes. I don't want anyone to say we blocked them from doing their job or caused a scene. A calm witness helps." They decided not to dial yet. There was no towing truck in sight. But Fatima saved the number. She also drafted a short message to the HOA email address, attaching the guest pass, the handbook page, and a tidy list of questions. Has the guest time limit changed? If so, when and where is the update posted? What is the notice period for new rules? How are residents informed? Can the public post be edited to remove the photo of our car? Nora read the draft, added a warm greeting at the start and a polite thanks at the end, and clicked send. Imran stepped outside again to check the car and saw Ron standing near the lot, speaking with a tow truck driver who had just pulled in, the truck idling low and loud. Imran called gently to Nora and Fatima. "It may be time to ask for help," he said, still calm, still steady. Nora felt her heart lift into her throat, but she breathed and reached for the folder. Fatima opened the phone app and pressed the non-emergency number, ready to explain that they had documents, that they were peaceful, and that they simply wanted a fair check of the rules while everyone kept their voices low. The tow truck rolled in slow and heavy, its lights off but its engine loud enough to shake the quiet morning. Ron, the volunteer in the neon vest, stood near the lot entrance, talking to the driver and pointing toward the row of guest spaces. From her porch, Nora felt her chest tighten. She looked at her parents and then reached automatically for the folder they had prepared. Fatima had the non-emergency number on her screen. With a small nod from Nora, she tapped call and held the phone to her ear. When the dispatcher answered, Fatima spoke in a calm, gentle voice. She explained that there was a dispute about a guest pass, that a tow was being discussed, and that they wished for a neutral presence to prevent a misunderstanding. She made it clear they were peaceful and had documents. The dispatcher said an officer would come by when available. Fatima thanked her and ended the call. They walked together toward the guest lot. The tow driver, a steady-looking man with careful eyes, glanced up as they approached. "Morning," he said. "Are you the owner of the sedan in guest space 3? "That's my parents' car," Nora said softly. "We have a valid guest pass. We also have the handbook page that says 72 hours with a pass." Ron cleared his throat and held up his clipboard. 2 hours is the limit," he announced. "We posted a compliance update." "Where is it posted?" Fatima asked, not unkindly. "On the notice board? In the handbook? In a letter to residents?" "On the app," Ron said, as if that ended the matter. He shifted his weight and tightened his grip on the clipboard. The tow driver looked from Ron to Nora to the paper in her hands. "Ma'am, I need written authorization from the board to remove a vehicle," he said carefully. "And I prefer situations to be clear. If there's a dispute and papers to review, I can hold for a bit." Karen appeared from the sidewalk with her phone in her hand. "I'm the board member handling compliance today," she said briskly. "This car is in violation of the 2-hour limit. We're acting under our authority to maintain order." Nora opened the folder and laid the documents on the hood of her parents' car, smoothing them with her palm. The guest pass sat on top, clearly printed with the approval email. Beneath it, she placed the handbook page and her screenshots. Imran added a short typed timeline. We want to be fair, Nora said. We're asking to follow what's written. Before anyone could answer, a patrol car turned the corner and pulled to a gentle stop near the clubhouse. A single officer stepped out and walked over with an open, steady posture. He introduced himself as Officer Reyes. Good morning, everyone, he said. Let's keep voices easy and talk one at a time. Who called? I did, Fatima said, with a small, respectful nod. We asked for a neutral presence. We have a guest pass and the handbook. There's disagreement about a new rule. Officer Reyes listened, then looked toward Karen. Ma'am, are you the person authorizing a tow? I am, Karen said. 2-hour limit for guest parking. We protect our community. We've had problems. Is that policy written anywhere I can read? Posted signs, handbook, or a dated update? The officer asked. Karen hesitated for a breath. We're updating practices, she said. People push limits if we let them. The app has a reminder. The officer turned to the tow driver. Are you here on a call from the HOA? Yes, the driver replied. I'm waiting for a clear green light. If this is active dispute and I can't see a posted rule, I'd rather hold. Understood, Officer Reyes said. He stepped to the car and looked at the pass on the dashboard, then at the papers on the hood. He read the line Nora had boxed on the printout. This says 72 hours with an approved pass. He looked back at Karen. Do you have anything in writing that supersedes this? Karen lifted her chin. We don't need to put every adjustment in the handbook before we act, she said. We have discretion. Also, these are private spaces on private property. The officer nodded slowly. I hear you. Private property gives you certain options, he said evenly. But towing usually requires clear signage and a clear violation of posted rules, and residents should be given appropriate notice of changes. I'm not here to judge your internal policies, only to keep the peace and ensure nobody's rights are trampled in the moment. Imran stood quietly beside Nora, hands relaxed at his sides. He had been watching the edges of the scene, the planters still too close to the ramp, the breaks in the red fire lane paint, the sprinkler head that sat a little high near the walkway. He spoke in a mild voice. Officer, may I share a few observations? Not as a complaint, only as context. Go ahead, the officer said. In many communities, Imran said, emergency lanes must be kept visibly clear, with continuous markings. Accessibility ramps should have clear turning space. If enforcement is strict for parking, safety markings may need to be strict as well. Otherwise, people feel singled out. He gestured gently toward the ramp and the curb without moving closer. Officer Reyes glanced where Imran pointed and made a note in his pad. Karen's mouth tightened. We handle our own maintenance, she said. That isn't related to this tow. Fatima's voice stayed warm. Everything is related to trust, she said. When rules are clear and safety is clear, people accept limits more easily. That is what keeps a community steady. The officer looked from the papers to Imran. You seem familiar with these standards, he said. Do you work in this area? Imran met his eyes, calm and open. Yes, he said simply. I'm a senior building and code compliance inspector with the city. My wife, Fatima, is the director of neighborhood services. Today we are here as family, off duty, helping our daughter move in. We are not acting in any official capacity. We do not want special treatment. We only want clear, written rules to be honored. For a second, the air held still, as if the scene itself took a breath. Ron's posture shifted. The tow driver's eyebrows rose slightly, and then he looked down at his boots, respectful and quiet. Karen's eyes flicked between Fatima and Imran. So you're telling me you're here to, what? Audit us, she asked, trying to sound light. Fatima shook her head. No, she said. We are here for our daughter. We are also neighbors, in the widest sense. If we see a misunderstanding that could turn into a lasting problem, we try to smooth it. That is all. Officer Reyes nodded once, as if pieces in his mind had clicked into place. Thanks for sharing, he said. Again, I'm just here to keep things peaceful. But I'll say this plainly, if towing happens without clear signage or written policy, people often file complaints, sometimes with the city, sometimes with state agencies, sometimes with their own attorneys. That's expensive stress for everyone. The tow driver cleared his throat. I'm going to step back for a few minutes, he said. I won't hook the car while you sort the paperwork. Call me if you need me. He walked to his truck and leaned on the door, hands empty, body language relaxed. Karen looked around and saw more neighbors watching, a couple by the mail kiosk, a woman with the small red-collar dog, and Mr. Alvarez standing partly behind a tree, pretending to inspect a leaf. Attention had gathered, and attention had weight. Karen's voice softened by a fraction. We can make a practical arrangement, she said. Move the car outside the gate for today, and I'll consider the notice resolved. Nora kept her tone even. There's no public parking just outside the gate, she said. It would mean leaving the car several blocks away in a different neighborhood. My parents are only here today and early evening. We followed the rules as written. Here's a middle step, Officer Reyes offered. Let's agree no towing will occur until a board review happens, soon. You can schedule an urgent meeting to reconcile the handbook with current practice. Meanwhile, this guest pass is valid on its face. If you all agree to that for the day, we avoid conflict and give the board a chance to adjust or clarify things. Karen pressed her lips together. The board meets on Tuesdays, she said. Mr. Alvarez spoke up, gently but clearly. The board can call an emergency session, he said. We had one for the pool heater last winter. We can do it for people. Ron shifted, then glanced at Karen. Maybe a short meeting later today, he said. We could put a note on the app. People are already asking questions. The suggestion hovered like a small bridge between two cliffs. Karen looked down at Nora's papers again, then at the officer's calm face. Fine, she said at last. Emergency meeting in the clubhouse this evening at 6. We will review the guest parking language and signage. No towing of this vehicle before that meeting. She spoke the words carefully, as if laying each stone in order. Thank you, Nora said, relief moving through her like fresh air. We'll be there with our documents. Fatima added gently, and perhaps it would help to include safety items on the agenda: ramp clearance, clear fire lane markings, consistent notice procedures. Small fixes can prevent big worries. Karen gave a brief nod that wasn't quite agreement but wasn't refusal either. We'll see, she said. For now, the car stays. But if it's there tomorrow morning, we'll revisit. It won't be, Nora said. We planned only one day. Her words were simple, and they sounded like a promise to herself as much as to Karen. Officer Reyes took a small card from his pocket and wrote an incident number on it. He handed the card to Nora. This is just for your records, he said. If anything changes before the meeting, like a towing attempt, call us back. I appreciate everyone staying respectful. The tow driver gave a small wave and eased his truck back into gear. He drove out slowly, careful as he came, leaving the air quieter than when he had arrived. Ron lowered his clipboard and let out a breath he might not have known he was holding. He looked almost relieved. Neighbors drifted away with soft good mornings. Mr. Alvarez walked close enough to Nora to speak without being overheard. Good, he said, touching the brim of an imaginary cap. Meetings bring light. I'll be there. He smiled and headed home. On the walk back to the house, the three of them didn't rush. The morning felt different now, still tense, but steadier. Nora felt the ground under her shoes again, not like a floor that might tilt. "Thank you," she said to her parents. "For being calm. For knowing what to say." Fatima squeezed her arm. "You did the most important part," she said. "You read the rules, you stayed polite, and you kept records. People notice that, even if they don't say it." Imran looked back once at the ramp and the red curb. "Meetings help if they stay focused," he murmured. "We'll bring short lists, not long speeches." Inside, they set the folder on the kitchen counter and added the officer's card to the front pocket. Nora typed a brief note summarizing the agreement: "No towing before 6 p.m. meeting. Bring handbook, pass, photos. Ask for clarity on rules, signage, notice process, safety items." She sent a thank you email to the general HOA address and to Emma at the office, attaching the incident number and confirming they would attend. For a little while, life returned to the practical. Imran fixed the loose hinge on a cabinet door. Fatima repotted a small herb plant and placed it by the window where it would catch light. Nora unrolled a rug in the living room and pressed the corners down with books. Simple actions settled the air like quiet music. As afternoon approached, Nora made a tray of tea and cut fruit. They sat at the counter and went over their plan: speak with respect, keep sentences short, let documents do the heavy work. Fatima wrote 3 headings on a notepad: guest parking language, signage and notice, safety and access, and under each, 2 or 3 bullet points. Imran added a line at the top: we are neighbors first. At 5:30, they walked toward the clubhouse. The sun hung low, turning the trimmed hedges gold. Through the glass doors, they could see chairs arranged in simple rows and a long table at the front. A few people were already seated, talking in low voices. Emma stood near a stack of papers, ready with pens and a sign-in sheet. She caught Nora's eye and offered a small, encouraging smile. Nora felt a flutter in her chest, not fear exactly, more like the feeling before a presentation at school: aware, awake, standing at the edge of what could change. Part of her wished none of this had happened. Another part, deeper and steadier, understood that communities do not become fair by accident. They become fair because people show up with calm hearts and clear words. She looked at her parents and saw the same thought in their faces. "Let's go in," she said, lifting the folder. "We'll keep it short and kind. We'll let the facts speak." And with that, they stepped into the room where the next part of their new life would be shaped not by arguments, but by the honest work of putting rules and people back in the same conversation. By 5:45, the clubhouse held the low hum of people finding seats. The room smelled faintly of fresh cleaner and paper. A row of folding chairs faced a long table where 3 name placards waited: President, Treasurer, and Secretary. Karen stood near the end with a stack of files, her posture straight, her scarf neatly tied. Emma greeted arrivals at the door and guided them to the sign-in sheet. Mr. Alvarez took a chair in the second row and gave Nora a small nod of support. Ron, the volunteer in the neon vest, set his clipboard on a side table and looked relieved to not be in charge. Nora entered with her parents and paused to take in the room. It was not large, but it felt serious. A bulletin board on the side wall showed photos from last summer's picnic and a flyer about pool rules. None of it mentioned guest parking. She felt the familiar flutter of nerves and then the steady weight of the folder in her hands. That weight calmed her. It held proof, and proof invited fairness. At 6 sharp, the board president, a calm woman named Lila with reading glasses on a chain, tapped a small wooden gavel against the table. "Thank you all for attending this special meeting," she said. "Our goal is clarity and calm. We will hear the issue, review documents, and agree on immediate steps." Her voice was even and warm, like a teacher who likes order but also likes people. Karen adjusted her files and spoke first. "We've had an increase in cars left in guest spaces for long stretches," she said. This creates crowding and opens the door to misuse. Today, a car remained longer than 2 hours. I issued notices and requested a tow. That is within our responsibility to maintain standards. Several heads turned toward Nora. She kept her eyes on Lila and raised a hand slightly. Lila nodded to her. Please, Lila said. Share your side. Nora stood, smoothing the front of her sweater without thinking. Good evening, she began. I moved in yesterday. My parents visited to help me settle. We parked in a guest spot and placed a pass on the dashboard. The handbook says guests may use designated spaces for up to 72 hours with an approved pass. I printed the email that approved our pass and placed it with the handbook page in this folder. This morning we found violation notices on our mailbox and windshield. Later, a tow truck arrived. We asked for a neutral presence to keep things calm until we could show our documents. She kept each sentence short and clear, letting the facts do most of the work. She did not mention titles or job roles. She did not need to. Fatima and Imran sat beside her with steady faces, their hands relaxed on their laps. Lila looked to Emma. Do we have a copy of the handbook page? She asked. Emma held up a packet. Yes, she said. I made 10 copies of the relevant page and the approval email. They are at the end of each row. She handed stacks to the first person in each row to pass back. Paper rustled softly as residents read. The key line sat in bold in the middle of the page. Guests may use designated spaces for up to 72 hours with an approved pass. Karen leaned forward. That line is outdated, she said. We've discussed a 2-hour cap as a best practice. I posted a reminder in the community app. Mr. Alvarez raised a hand. Lila nodded to him. I appreciate reminders, he said, but I didn't see a dated update to the handbook or a notice on the board. I also didn't see new signs. Many neighbors rely on what is printed. If the rules change, how will we know? A woman in a green cardigan spoke next. I had company last week for a family dinner, she said. They were nervous about where to park because they heard stories about towing. They left early. We all want order, but we also want to welcome our friends. A man near the aisle lifted his hand partway and spoke in a soft voice. I use a walker, he said simply. The planters near the ramp make it hard to turn. I've scraped my knuckles twice. Clear paths help a lot. He did not speak with anger. He just named something true and sat back down. Lila took notes as people spoke, her pen moving in calm strokes. Thank you, she said. We are hearing 2 clusters of concerns, one about guest parking limits and notice, and one about safety markings and access. These are connected by trust. Emma clicked a small speakerphone that sat on the table. We also have our management company representative on the line, she said. Mr. Reed, can you hear us? A voice came through with a bit of room echo. Yes, Mr. Reed said. Good evening. I'm here to advise on process and risk. I don't make board decisions, but I can share best practices. Lila gestured to Karen. Karen, please summarize your steps today, she said. Then we'll ask Mr. Reed about notice requirements. Karen kept her tone controlled. She described her morning rounds, her view of increased misuse, her app post, and her call to the tow company. She did not look at Nora. She looked at the paper in front of her as if it were a window. Lila turned to Mr. Reed. What is your guidance when practice and print do not match? She asked. Consistency is key, Mr. Reed said. If the handbook says 72 hours with a pass, you should enforce that until a formal change is adopted and noticed to residents. Changing a rule usually requires a board vote, dated minutes, and a clear notice to owners. If towing is used, signs should align with the policy, and photo evidence should support each enforcement. Selective or surprise enforcement creates risk and erodes trust. A few people nodded. The man with the canvas tote murmured, "Makes sense." Karen kept her voice measured. "We cannot allow people to take advantage while we draft words," she said. "The app is a modern notice tool. People should read it." Fatima raised her hand politely. Lila nodded to her. "May I offer a small thought?" Fatima asked. "Not as an official, only as a neighbor and a guest today." "Please," Lila said. "Good rules are like good signposts," Fatima said. "They stand where everyone can see them, and they do not move without a new post going up. If the board wants a 2-hour limit, that discussion can happen. But until then, the posted rule, the handbook, and the pass keep visitors safe from surprise actions. It also helps if safety items are addressed with the same care: ramps, fire lanes, clear paint. When people see safety held, they accept limits more easily. It feels fair." Her voice was calm, and it traveled easily in the room. She did not raise it. She did not press. She invited people to picture something better without scolding the present. Imran added only one sentence. "To help, we brought a short checklist for anyone who wants it," he said. "It lists small fixes: repaint fire lane markings, measure ramp turning space, post guest parking signs that match the handbook, and create a simple notice process for any future change." Emma took the checklist papers and placed them on the side table where people could pick them up later. Several residents glanced at them with interest. Mr. Reed's voice came through the speaker again. "One more thought," he said. "Most boards include a courtesy step for a first issue, a warning, a clear citation, and time to respond. This keeps the peace and reduces appeals." Karen looked at Lila, then at the room. For the first time that evening, some of the tension in her shoulders seemed to ease. She folded her hands. "I want standards," she said, and her voice sounded more human. "I want quiet evenings and clear lots. I did not intend to make neighbors feel unwelcome." She took a breath. "I am open to better steps." A murmur of approval moved through the rows. It sounded like a soft wind through leaves. Lila set her pen down and spoke in a steady rhythm. "Here is a set of motions for the board to consider," she said. "These are practical and can start tonight. 1. Suspend all disputed guest parking fines issued in the last 30 days and pause towing for first time, pass holding guests until we reconcile policy and signage. 2. Direct maintenance to repaint fire lane markings, remove obstacles from the ramp turning space, and check sprinkler heads along walkways. 3. Draft a clear guest parking section that matches our goals, to be reviewed at the next regular meeting, with notice to owners before any change. 4. Form a temporary policy committee with 2 residents, 1 board member, and a representative from management to review language and notice steps. 5. Correct the community app post to remove identifying details of specific vehicles and replace it with a neutral reminder that links to the current, printed rule." She paused to let the words sink in, then added, "I also propose that Karen step back from enforcement decisions until this review is complete, not as a punishment, but to give the community a fresh start while we align words and practice." The room held still. Order sat at the edge of the table like a patient guest, waiting to be invited in. Karen looked at the floor for a long breath, then back up at Lila. "I can support that," she said. The words came out careful, but they were clear. "Thank you," Lila said. "Board members, please indicate your vote on each motion, one at a time." The board secretary, a quiet man with kind eyes, recorded each vote. Motion 1, yes. Motion 2, yes. Motion 3, yes. Motion 4, yes. Motion 5, yes. The votes were steady, not dramatic, and they sounded like a hallway light clicking on. Lila looked out at the rows. "We will need residents for the temporary committee," she said. "Volunteers." Mr. Alvarez raised his hand at once. "I'll help," he said. I keep notes. I read carefully. And I care. A few soft chuckles warmed the room. Emma glanced toward Nora with hopeful eyes. Nora, would you be willing to serve? She asked. You've shown patience and good record keeping. You've lived with these words for 2 days straight. A few people smiled at that, and the laughter turned kind. Nora felt her cheeks warm, but she nodded. Yes, she said. I'll help. I want a home that feels fair. Lila wrote their names. A board member will join Karen. If you're willing to serve in a non-enforcement role, your attention to detail could help the language, even as someone else handles decisions during the review. Karen considered, then lifted her chin. I will serve, she said. I can listen. I can help write what we mean. Mr. Reed added from the speaker, I'll attend the first committee call to advise on notice and signage. The man who used a walker raised his hand again. Thank you, he said. For hearing us. He did not say more. He did not need to. His words landed softly and stayed. Lila closed the list and looked at Nora. As for your parents' car, she said, the notices are void. The pass is valid under the current rule. Thank you for handling a hard day with calm. Nora exhaled a breath she did not know she had been holding. Thank you, she said. She looked at Karen and added, I appreciate you agreeing to the review. Karen gave a small nod. I appreciate you bringing documents instead of anger, she replied. That helped. The meeting shifted into practical tasks. Emma wrote a work order for repainting the fire lane and clearing the ramp. Ron offered to move the planters first thing in the morning. Several residents signed up on a clipboard to receive updates on the committee's progress. Someone mentioned a neighbor who prints signs cheaply. Emma noted the contact. As people stood to leave, small conversations bloomed, not about blame, but about details: what font to use on signs, where to place them, how to make the notice board easy to read. A neighbor with a quiet voice asked Imran if the curb paint should be single or double width to be easy to see at night. Imran answered in a few simple words and promised to email a short reference document. He kept it light and friendly, like a neighbor swapping recipes. Mr. Alvarez walked up to Nora and tapped the folder with a fingertip. Good work, he said. This felt like a storm this morning. Now it feels like rain that fed the garden. Nora laughed softly. It felt like a storm inside me too, she said. I'm glad we all chose umbrellas instead of thunder. On the way out, Karen paused near Nora. The room had emptied enough for a private moment. I may speak sharply sometimes, Karen said, her voice low. I wanted to protect what we built here. Today I saw how my steps looked from your side. I will try to do better. Nora met her eyes. We all want the same thing, she said. A safe, kind place. Thank you for staying in the room. Outside, the sky had turned a soft blue, and the first evening stars blinked on. The guest lot lay quiet under the street lamp. The pass on the dashboard caught a little light, the letters faint but steady. Nora felt the shape of a different future settling over the community, one with clearer signs, gentler notices, and neighbors who waved a little longer before going inside. They walked home slowly. Fatima tucked her hand into Nora's arm. You spoke like a builder, she said. Short, clear lines. Strong joints. Imran smiled. Tomorrow we will make tea and read a new sign, he said. That is a fine day. Nora looked at her front door, at the small porch light she had flipped on before the meeting, and at the windows that now held her curtains. This was her home. It didn't feel fragile anymore. It felt like a place she could help shape. She set the folder on the entryway table, where it would be ready for the committee's first call, and felt something settle inside her, calm, earned, and steady, like the level line of a well-hung frame. The next morning began with the quiet clatter of tools and the soft scrape of pots being moved. Ron arrived early in his neon vest, this time carrying a tape measure and a kind smile. He rolled the planters away from the ramp and set them along a sunny wall where flowers could still be seen but would not block anyone's path. A maintenance crew followed with brushes and a small cart of paint. They taped neat edges and repainted the red curb in one continuous line. The fresh color looked bright and sure, like a line in a book that finally made sense. They checked the sprinkler head that stuck up too high and replaced it with a lower piece that sat flush with the grass. Every small fix felt like a polite bow to the people who needed the space to be safe. Emma posted a new message in the community app at 9. It was short and clear. It linked to the printed handbook page and explained that guest parking remained 72 hours with an approved pass until the board adopted any update. It also said the earlier post had been changed to remove a photo and to avoid singling out any neighbor. At the end, there was a simple sentence, "Thank you for your patience while we make our rules clear and kind." Reading it, Nora felt her shoulders settle a little more. The tone of the day had shifted from hard lines to steady ones. At 10, the temporary policy committee held its first meeting around the clubhouse table. Lila joined as the board's steady hand. Karen sat with a notebook, listening more than speaking. Mr. Alvarez brought a folder of printouts and a pen that clicked when he thought. Nora set her neat stack of documents in front of her and wrote 3 words at the top of a fresh page: simple, fair, useful. Mr. Reed dialed in by speakerphone, and Emma took notes with quick, small letters. They began by reading the current guest parking sentence out loud. That small act made the room feel focused. Then they listed goals on a whiteboard: welcome visitors, avoid crowding, keep safety clear, and reduce surprise actions. Mr. Reed suggested a 1-page visitor parking guide that matched the handbook and signs. The guide would be handed out with passes, posted on the app, and kept on the notice board. 1 page, he said through the speaker. If a rule can't fit on 1 page, it isn't ready. Karen leaned forward and spoke in a softer tone than the day before. I wanted a 2-hour limit because it felt safe, she said. But I see now that sudden change causes worry. What if we keep 72 hours with a pass, add a courtesy check-in after the first day, and require a quick online renewal if someone needs longer? That way the office knows which cars still belong. That's practical, Mr. Alvarez said. He clicked his pen and added a note: Day 1 courtesy text. Nora suggested a small box on the pass where the office could write the pass start time and the approval initials. People understand paper, she said. It helps even if the app is down. They moved to process. Fatima, attending only as a silent observer, handed the group a 1-page checklist Imran had drafted the night before. It was very simple: before any tow, 1. Confirm written rule and posted sign match, 2. Confirm pass status and time, 3. Issue a written warning with photos and a clear deadline, 4. Confirm safety is not at risk, 5. Record names and time of all steps. No one argued with it. The list felt like a map. Then came signage. Emma held up 2 mock-ups, one that used small letters and many lines, and another that used large letters and short phrases. The second sign read like the face of a friendly guide: guest parking with pass only up to 72 hours questions. Call/email office. Under that, a short note: please keep fire lanes and ramps clear. They chose the second sign without debate. People read big words, Mr. Alvarez said. We should give them big words. They talked about special days. Holidays often bring more cars and longer visits. The committee wrote 1 sentence for that: on holiday weekends, passes may be renewed once for up to 24 additional hours upon request. The word once kept it simple. The words upon request kept it kind. Nora thought of her cousins who might fly in one day, and she smiled. They wrote a small section to prevent embarrassment. No public photos of specific vehicles will be posted to the app or notice board, the draft read. Questions about a vehicle will be handled privately. Karen read that line twice and nodded. That is better, she said. If I had read this 2 days ago, I would have done a different thing. Her voice carried a trace of regret and a thread of relief. By noon, they had a clean draft. Lila suggested a quick pilot: put up temporary laminated signs that matched the new words, use the courtesy text for a week, and gather feedback. If it works smoothly, the board would adopt it at the next regular meeting and order permanent metal signs. We'll share the draft with everyone this afternoon, Lila said. We'll invite comments for 3 days and hold a short Q&A before the vote. After the meeting, Nora and her parents ate a simple lunch at home: sandwiches and fruit on plates that now had a place in the cabinet. The house looked more settled, a rug here, a lamp there, the small herb plant catching light by the window. Imran checked the front door and smiled at how well it closed after his adjustments. Fatima swept the porch and watered the flowers that had been moved away from the ramp. Each act was small, but small acts are how peace is built. In the afternoon, the neighborhood took on an open, friendly feel. The man who used a walker came by to try the ramp. He rolled to the top, turned in the clear space, and smiled at the easy movement. Better, he said simply, and lifted a hand in thanks before continuing down the path. The words were few, but they stayed with Nora like a small light. At 3, Karen knocked on Nora's door. She stood holding 2 printed sign samples, each with a different font. Her scarf was less tight around her neck today. Do you have a minute? She asked. I'd like a resident's eyes on these. Nora invited her in, and they spread the samples on the counter. They chose the font that was easier to read from a distance. Karen tried the sentence out loud: guest parking with pass only up to 72 hours. She nodded. This says what we mean, she said. No more guessing. Before dinner, Emma posted the draft policy and the sign mock-up to the app and the notice board. She added a sentence that sounded like a hand offered across a table: if you have thoughts, please share them by Friday at 5 p.m. Short and specific is best. Mr. Reed scheduled a brief webinar for neighbors who like to ask questions live. The tone of the messages stayed steady and warm. Language does not fix everything, but good language opens doors. Nora's parents planned to leave at dusk to beat the late-night traffic. They packed their small overnight bag and checked the house one more time for tiny things that can get lost: phone chargers, a scarf left on the chair, a tape measure beside the sink. Before they stepped out, a few neighbors stopped by the porch. Mr. Alvarez brought a small tin of cookies and a folded sheet of paper with a list of great takeout places nearby. The woman with the red-collar dog left a welcome card. Ron arrived without the vest and waved shyly. If you ever need help moving furniture, he said, I'm good at lifting and not breaking things. They laughed, and the sound was clean and kind. Karen came last. She did not stay long. She offered a brief apology to Nora's parents. I spoke too quickly and enforced too fast, she said. I'm sorry for the stress I caused. Thank you for how you handled it. Imran answered with a small bow of his head. Thank you for staying in the room, he said. That is the hardest part and the most important. Fatima added, communities are not made of perfection. They are made of repair. Karen smiled, a real smile, then excused herself to deliver the sign mock-ups to the print shop. They walked together to the guest lot for one last look at the car. The fresh red curb paint glowed softly in the evening light. The ramp was open and easy. The temporary laminated sign made a gentle promise in simple words. Nora took a photo, not to build a case this time but to remember a turning point. Fatima tucked a small bundle of homemade food into the back seat for the drive. Imran checked the tail lights out of habit. Goodbyes were warm and unhurried. Nora hugged her parents and thanked them for their steady hearts and clear steps. You taught me how to be strong without being hard, she said. That feels like a good way to live. They smiled in that quiet way that parents smile when they see a lesson land. The car pulled away with a soft crunch of gravel, then turned the corner and was gone. The next days filled with ordinary things that now felt different. Maintenance finished the fire lane paint on the whole loop, not just the part near the clubhouse. New reflectors made the lines easier to see at night. The notice board got a small header with the words "Current Rules" in big letters so everyone knew where to look. Emma printed the one-page visitor parking guide and kept a neat stack in a clear holder by the office door. Neighbors picked them up without being asked, the same way people take napkins they know they'll need. On Friday, the committee hosted the short Q&A. The questions were friendly and focused. How do we get a pass after hours? What about delivery trucks? Can we get a number to text for quick help? The answers stayed short and useful. After the call, the board voted to adopt the policy and order permanent signs. Lila sent a newsletter that balanced warmth with clarity. It thanked neighbors for their patience, explained the steps taken, and shared the dates for the sign installation. It also reminded everyone that first-time issues would receive a courtesy warning and that towing would be used only after clear notice and time to fix a problem. The tone of the letter felt like a hand on a shoulder, steady, not heavy. On Saturday morning, 2 workers installed the metal signs. The letters were crisp, the bolts tight. The signs stood at the ends of each guest row and near the entrance to the lot, where anyone could see them from the sidewalk. Nora watched the last sign go up. She thought about the first day's worry, the orange stickers, the tow truck's low engine, the knot in her stomach. Then she thought about the meeting, the checklist, the clear words, and the way neighbors' voices sounded when they felt heard. The knot had untied itself. In its place, there was a quiet thread that ran through everything: trust. That evening, the community held a small welcome and thanks tea on the clubhouse patio. It wasn't formal. People brought plates of fruit, small cakes, and a bowl of bright lemons for water. Lila said a few words. She thanked Emma for her careful notes, Mr. Reed for his guidance, Ron for moving the planters and for being calm, Karen for her work on the new signs, Mr. Alvarez for volunteering, and Nora for bringing patience and proof when it mattered. The man with the walker lifted his cup and said, "To clear paths," and everyone repeated the words with a smile. As the sun faded and string lights flicked on, Nora sat with neighbors and learned names. She found out that the woman with the red-collar dog was named Dina and that the dog's name was Muffin. She learned that Mr. Alvarez wrote poems in the early morning and that Ron built birdhouses on weekends. Karen talked about roses and which kinds did best in the soil. Emma showed a picture of a shelf she was building at home and said she hoped to make the office notice board just as neat. Ordinary details drew soft lines between people until it felt like a picture you could hang. Later, when the patio had quieted and the last cups had been washed, Nora walked home under a sky that seemed wider than before. She paused at the guest lot and read the sign one more time, not because she needed to but because the words made sense and gave comfort. She looked at the ramp and the clean red curb and felt the kind of pride that doesn't shout. It simply stands and lasts. Inside, she set the committee folder on a shelf near the door, not in the center of the room anymore, and not hidden either. It would be there when needed. She brewed a small cup of tea and stood by the window. Her porch light cast a circle of soft gold on the path. Across the way, she saw Karen walking slowly, stopping to look at the new sign and then at the flower bed. Karen bent to pull a small weed and then stood again, hands on her hips in a thoughtful pose. It looked like the pose of someone who cared. Nora smiled. The lesson she carried from these days was simple and strong: rules are promises of how we will treat one another, and promises work best when everyone can see them. Clarity makes room for kindness. Kindness makes room for courage. And courage, the quiet everyday kind, turns a set of buildings into a neighborhood.